Hi, I'm John Luetich, the curator and the historian for the Pan Am Museum. And I'd like to show you this very special donation we recently received from former Pan Am flight attendant Heidi Kreuziger, who kept it for many years and has now generously given it to our museum here in Garden City. It's a souvenir scrapbook of Pan Am's inaugural mail flight on November 22, 1935, from Alameda near San Francisco to Manila in the Philippines with its famed China Clipper. And the book appears to have been intended for then Postmaster General James Farley, who brought a letter from President Franklin Roosevelt to the event. Farley's presence is noteworthy because it was government airmail contracts that enabled the U.S. airlines to sustain profitability, as this is how Pan Am started in 1927 with its mail contract to Havana. The flight across the Pacific was an instrument of travel, commerce, and peace, and Farley's presence demonstrated America's recognition of the flight's importance. The scrapbook is a complete transcription with photos of the event, which was one of the most noteworthy dates in the history of transportation. The China Clipper's ability to fly the critical leg from California to Hawaii showed convincingly that distance was no longer a barrier to transocean flights. The epoch-making flight was a culmination of years of research and preparation headed by Pan Am's principal founder, Juan Trippe, whose vision of a global American airline was always his goal. The planning and preparation for the historic flight left no stone unturned. The survey flight by Charles and Ann Morrow Lindbergh in 1931 showed the most feasible route across the Pacific was across the middle via Hawaii, and the discovery of the Wake Island Atoll provided the vital fueling stop between Midway and Guam. After the U.S. government's approval, as all the stops were American territories, Juan Trippe set up teams to construct the bases with hotels that allowed Pan Am's passengers comfortable overnight layovers and necessary refueling stations. This was a major undertaking, particularly with Wake Island, as it was uninhabitable with nothing but sand and coral that needed to be dynamited out from the lagoon where the planes landed. A chartered freighter, the SS North Haven, made 2 trips to these islands in 1934 and 36, with all the provisions and personnel necessary to construct the bases. In 1932, Trippe had ordered the Martin Company to build the 3 M130s to Pan Am specifications with the range necessary to cross the oceans. Concurrently, the gains in technology and communication and navigation also made everything possible. Most important of all were the people of Pan Am, the pilots, the engineers, the navigators, the weathermen, the mechanics, the ground crew, the radio men, without whom this would not have happened. A few other things I should tell you. At the time, there was not a great demand for Transpacific air travel, as only rich people were vacation traveling on steamships, so Trippe was preparing for the future trade with Asia, as he already had purchased a 45% stake in China National Aviation Corporation, a domestic airline of China, which he hoped to complement Pan Am's Transpacific service. By the way, the San Francisco to Manila fare, one way, was equivalent to about $10,000 in today's money. Also noteworthy, Trippe proceeded with the project before the mail contract was awarded, and although there was no other competition, it was a given that Pan Am would get the route. The U.S. government welcomed Pan Am's presence in the Pacific as Japan was already planning for war, and having a commercial American company present would have a mediating effect, if only for a while. The Alameda event was broadcast around the world, and most prominent of the speakers besides Juan Trippe and James Farley were Manuel Quezon, President of the Philippines, Frank Merriam, the Governor of California, Joseph Poindexter, the Governor of Hawaii, and William McAdoo, the United States Senator from California. Trippe had arranged for a stagecoach to deliver the bags of mail that James Farley would help load into the Clipper. And there were over 100,000 spectators lining the shores of Alameda, and over 300,000 in Manila upon their arrival 5 days later. Starting on 21st of October 1936, Pan Am carried passengers to Manila, although it was restricted to 8 or even less on the San Francisco-Honolulu stretch because of the headwinds. And here's the beginning of the speech given by James Farley, Postmaster General of the United States, as he's reading the letter from President Roosevelt. My dear Mr. Postmaster General, please convey to the people of the Pacific Coast the deep interest and heartfelt congratulations of an air-minded sailor. Even at this distance, I thrill to the wonder of it all. They tell me that the inauguration of the Transpacific Sky Mail also celebrates the 100th anniversary of the arrival of the first clipper ship in San Francisco. The years between the two events mark a century of progress that is without parallel, and it is our just pride that America and Americans have played no minor part in the blazing of new trails. There can be no higher hope than that this heritage of courage, daring, initiative, and enterprise will be conserved and intensified. Very truly yours, Franklin D. Roosevelt. Here's the speech given by Pan Am's President Juan Trippe. We are assembled here today to dedicate regular commercial air service across the Pacific Ocean to Hawaii, the Philippines, and the Orient, an area extending over one-third the way around the world. It is significant and appropriate that the first scheduled air service over a major ocean route is being started under the auspices of the American government by an American company operating aircraft designed and built in the United States and in charge of American captains and crews. The first long-distance over-water route flown regularly anywhere in the world was the 600-mile journey across the Caribbean from Kingston, Jamaica, to Barranquilla, Colombia. For 5 years, Pan American has flown this route. It has been our laboratory of preparation for the service instituted today. There, our technical staff has developed our ocean direction finding and navigation apparatus, and there, our flight captains and their crews have qualified for over-ocean service. So complete and effective was this accumulated experience that when our first experimental flight across the Pacific was undertaken 6 months ago, the clipper ship cruised without incident over the 2,400-mile course and set down in Honolulu 1 minute late. The Pan American clipper ships, which are to link our continent to the Orient, have captured for America the 19 outstanding world records for flight efficiency. Before they could span the Pacific, it was necessary to construct modern air bases adequate for and worthy of them. These have been built at Midway, Wake, and Guam by engineers and airmen whose exploits may well be remembered by history with the deeds of earlier American pioneers. No enterprise of this magnitude is possible without the cooperation of many men and many agencies. In the United States, Alaska, and the 33 countries of Latin America, and in China, are scattered the 3,000 men of Pan American, whose teamwork has been so large a factor. Our American railroads acting through the Railway Express Agency, our domestic airlines, our Pacific steamship companies, and American business institutions everywhere have all contributed. And the whole nation is represented in the vital contribution made through the transportation of the United States mails. The President of the United States, seeking as one of the achievements of his administration a closer understanding among the nations and an increasing foreign trade, has watched the whole development with friendly interest. On his behalf, Postmaster General Farley, whose own department has put itself so wholeheartedly behind the project, is here to extend the greetings of the administration and to say to Captain Music and his crew, good luck and Godspeed. The event ends with Juan Trippe giving Captain Music and his crew orders to cast off and depart for Manila in accordance therewith. I hope you've enjoyed this little presentation, and I hope you come see it in person at our museum in Garden City, New York. We are located within the Cradle of Aviation Museum.